Hi, everyone. Let me ask you a question. What the heck do ears have to do with interviewing? We talked about it last show. We're going to talk a little bit more about that tonight. Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Jack Mitchell, and welcome to Whyz HR, everything you want to know about human resources. And again, I have my very special co host for the month of July, the Director of Human Resources for the wonderful city of Port St. Lucie, Natalie Cabrera. Natalie, good evening.
Hi, Jack. Thanks for having me back.
Welcome to another show. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, this is Natalie's last show for a while. We're going to get her back. She's too good not to have her come back as a co-host, but the way we have it, we have a special co-host per month. And this month we were really fortunate and graced to have this wonderful, real professional, and really a wonderful lady to join us for all of our 4 shows in the month of July. So, and you can watch those shows anytime on social media, but you can also go to Treasure Coast TV and watch us on treasurecoasttelevision.com. I guess it's treasurecoasttelevision.com. And you can see us there anytime. So, and you can go back and look at how wonderful, if you missed a show, you can always go back there and listen to some of the wonderful things that we said, and especially some of the wonderful things that our celebrity co-host Natalie shared with us. She had some wonderful, brilliant insights during the past week, just wonderful. And it's just been a great time with her. Remember, our goal is to have 3 things. We wanted this to be enjoyable for us because this is our free time. We want to be enjoyable for you, our audience. We also want it to be engaging. We want it to be such that you enjoy participating with us. It's not a stuffy lecture on human resources.
It's a conversation.
It's a conversation actually with the 3 of us. It's you and Natalie and me, and the 3 of us kind of sharing in that conversation. And then the 4th thing, we really do want to share knowledge. I mean, Natalie has years and years experience. She's the most senior HR executive in the city of Port St. Lucie. I have an extensive background in HR. With all the gray hair you see up here, that's perhaps even more experience than Natalie. And even the guests that we bring on, and we have another wonderful guest coming on a little later today in the show, also has terrific experience. So we're really bringing you very senior HR professionals in how we look at various aspects of the whole employment situation. We've been focusing in on recruitment and staffing. Natalie, just kind of, if you would, real quickly, kind of go through the major things that we have talked about. You know, you can use my...
Sure. So we've talked about opening the position, posting it, pre-planning, reviewing job descriptions, the salary, the benefits, the skill sets needed, education requirements needed for that position, sourcing, how you go about interviewing, who participates in that interview, whether it's a single person or a panel.
Yep.
And we've talked about resumes, the do's and don'ts.
That was a big one.
Mm-hmm.
It was a big one.
We talked about initial screenings,
Yep.
assessments, and interviews. And I think we're still on interviews today.
That's correct. So the 3 major ones in terms of sourcing, resumes, and the actual interviewing. And one of the things that we've said all along, and we always say at the beginning of a show, if you have a question, feel free to go to the chat there and just write the question, and we're happy to respond to it. Hopefully we'll know the answer, and if not, we'll
get back to you.
Get back to you. I'll make something up. No, we'll get you an answer, and we'll get you the correct answer. But if you're a little embarrassed or you don't want your name on the screen, because it will be on the screen if you chat to us. If you don't want that, then you can always just email me at drjack@whyzhr.com during the week, and I'll be happy to either respond during the week or we'll bring it up in next week's show. So feel free to do that. Natalie, tell them about this instrument that
whenever-
we have in front of us.
Whenever we have a good idea or something we think is important for you to note, you're going to hear the bell, and that'll tell you that that's a good idea.
Okay, wonderful. So let's get into the subject matter. We
Okay.
talked last time about the whole process of interviewing. And there were a couple of things I think that it's such an important topic to discuss for you as a potential employee, as a candidate looking to get a job. It's a scary, nervous process. It
Mhm.
really is. But it's also, so we wanted to spend a little bit of time focusing on how we can help you be even more successful by hearing what we as professional HR people would be looking for in that interview, and how you can respond to that. So that's pretty important, I think. One of the things that we didn't talk about, and this is really for the HR professionals, because there's a lot of HR professionals watching us, that one of the things that always bothers me is that not showing up on time for that interview. Sometimes an HR professional can be so busy, and that they do a lot of recruiting. This is only your first time doing the recruiting, but for that interviewer, this is really important.
Sure, they could have been, planning their day around these interview times,
And
and they have meetings in between, and
That's correct.
punctuality is important. That's an first impression you'd leave if you arrive late.
Yeah. So for you as a candidate to be there on time, but I'm talking to the HR professional, because a lot of times I know that sometimes an HR person gets really busy and they're on the
You're talking about
phone.
the other side, opposite side.
Yeah, on the
Mhm.
opposite side, because I think that the HR people have to remember that for that candidate, this is super important. They're really looking for a job. This is a real important time for them.
Well, I think it's a two-way street too.
It's a good going, yeah.
It's the impression you're leaving on that candidate of your company and your respect for them, as
Yeah.
well as their respect for you.
Yeah.
So I think it's
So-
vital.
So in that word respect, I think is key, that you as a candidate respect the opportunity to come and to interview for this company,
Mhm.
because not everyone's going to have that chance. You were selected to be there, and that's pretty wonderful.
Sure.
But on the other hand, the HR professional also has to have that same kind of respect for the candidate, so that they don't keep them waiting. I've seen people waiting for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and I just think that that's really, really unfair to that candidate who deserves to. If you have an appointment at 9 o'clock, it should be around 9 o'clock that you come out to get them. The other thing too is to get back to that candidate, because after the interview, the candidate's going to go back and say, "Gee whiz, I think I really had a good interview with
Mhm.
that HR professional or that hiring manager."
Sure.
But then they wait and they say, "Gee, I haven't heard from for a few days, or I haven't heard from a week," and then they may be tempted to call, or whatever the case is.
Well, not only that, you don't know if they're interviewing for other jobs in other companies, and they may be getting back with them sooner, and you may have missed your opportunity and lose out on a really good candidate.
That's a real good. I'm going
Ah,
to that's a
thanks.
real good point. And one of the things is that today, if you find a good candidate, this whole thing of getting good candidates, you really can't just be cavalier about it.
Sure.
That it's really difficult finding people that are qualified and good candidates. If that's the case, you need to get back to that person. But I think you need to get back to all the people in a responsible way, letting them know that
I agree.
that either they got the job or they didn't get the job, but always treat them with respect.
Definitely.
Let's take a break, and then I want you to introduce
Okay.
our guest for today.
Sounds
Okay?
good.
Some of the benefits that we received from the Leadership Institute is, one, getting to know what your work style is, and just finding like better ways or the best way to communicate with not only your team, but with people in general. And I found this leadership training to be something I did not imagine. It's been very enjoyable. It's very interactive. And I'm learning things about myself that I didn't know before. It really makes you think and look at things in a different perspective.
Thank you, Ali. Ali is a participant in an institute that I'm giving. Actually, I gave a workshop this morning and Ali was there. So it was nice for Ali to say those nice things. And she really is a terrific young executive for this company. So beside the HR and the recruiting area, I also do a lot of work with workshops and institutes that I give. So Ali was nice enough to give that nice testimonial. Let's bring in our guest. Tell the folks a
Sure.
little about who our guest is, and we'll have her come in. Where's the guest? Where does she live?
Port St. Lucie.
Oh, a local lady. Okay.
Yeah, this is Tammy Williamson. She is a 30 year HR professional. Actually, Tammy is the one that gave me my start at the city. So thank you, Tammy. I appreciate that. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Tammy, last week we were talking about interviewing and the pros and cons of interviewing, the kind of questions that we should ask. We talked a lot about behavioral-based questions, and we talked about ears. And you weren't here to hear that. You were busy doing some other important things with your family. But what I was taught and what I've taught in my classes to HR professionals is that I use a mnemonic device called an EAR, E-A-R. And in my interviewing, my goal is to get as many ears as possible. The E stands for example, okay, because I'm a behavioral psychologist. And so I look for behavioral type of questions. I don't care what someone says they're going to do. For me, I look at what their past performance has been. And so I want to find out what they did in the past that would suggest to me that they can do it in the future. So I'm going to ask them, I'll take a job responsibility or a personality trait that I'm looking for, and I'll ask them a question. And the question's going to be, give me an example of a time when you had to demonstrate leadership. Okay? So I'm looking for someone who's going to be a manager or a supervisor. So I want them to have some leadership skills. So I'll say, give me an example of a time when you were put in a leadership situation. Then the A stands for action. I'll say, tell me, what did you actually do? Was it you that led the group? Was it you that instigated it, or were you told by your manager? So walk me through step by step. What did you actually do that demonstrated the leadership? And then the R stands for results. What were the results that you got? So we talked last week quite a bit about this concept of ears. And so your job as an interviewer is to get as many ears as possible, and then you weight the value and the weight of the example and the actions and the results that the person, the candidate expresses. So that was one of the things that we spend quite a bit of time. When you interview yourself as a professional, what goes through your mind, and how do you format your interview with a candidate?
Well, the behavioral based questions are critical. You can get some technical things out of the way early on, as far as what type of software or hardware are you used to using, computer wise. But really, the behavioral based questions are so critical, and it's very important for HR professionals to be very prepared when they're sitting down for the interview. And if you're doing a panel interview, it's important that the other folks that you have, perhaps from other departments, the actual department that the employee would be working in, or the candidate, to have your game plan together ahead of time. Because I can guarantee you that the person being interviewed has spent quite a bit of time preparing for themselves, and they deserve to see that the organization has done their preparation and they take this very seriously. So again, those behavioral-based questions, give me an example. I've been a part of interviews where, those questions can get down to some really interesting areas that not to intentionally catch a candidate off guard, but really have them stop and think. And that was a question about failure. Give me an example of a time where you failed. And everybody's done it. Everybody's been in a situation, but you don't really expect that in an interview. And it's interesting to hear people have to, because they're prepared to talk about all these great things they've done, but we learned so much from our failures as well. So I think that's a key point to kind of think outside the box a little bit when you are preparing those questions.
Yeah.
That's a
Let's give her
You got
a bell on that. A bell on that one. That was excellent. Yeah, but it's not just give me an example of a failure. I mean, that's the way it has to start off. But really, what you really want to do is say, what did you learn from that? Because that's really important. What were the results of that failure, and what did you learn from it? Is really kind of key about that. Yourself, Natalie, in terms of how do you think in terms of formatting an interview for yourself?
What I would do for an for an applicant,
Yeah.
I would formulate my questions. I would want to know basically their skill set.
Yep.
I'd want to cover that. I'd want to cover, as Tammy mentioned, the behavior questions. I also agree that that's really how you kind of shape it to fit the candidate that you're looking for, so that you have that fit factor.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's important. I lay out a limited amount of questions. I don't like interviews that go on 20, 25 questions. I think it's just dragging it out. It's a little bit too much. If you have that many questions, it might be better to do a first and second interview, maybe with a different group so that you get the different opinions and insight into their perspective of that candidate.
Yeah, excellent. Let me just share with you a little bit of a program that I have. I think it's unique. I haven't seen any other people do it, but I've had amazing success with what I call my SIP interviewing. SIP stands for Speed Interviewing Program. Think in terms of a funnel, okay? Matter of fact, I have an assignment right now with a client down in Fort Lauderdale for a sales manager. So my thing is I'm going to source to get as many people providing me with their resumes. And so I want to put them in the top of this funnel, if you would. And then once I have, it depends on how many resumes I get, but I could get for a position like this, usually 50 to 100 positions for a good paying job for a very well-known organization in Fort Lauderdale. There's a lot of people. So we're going to be drawing from about a 20 or 30 mile radius. So there's a lot of population there. So I perhaps could get 50 to 100 resumes. I put them in the top of this funnel, if you would. And then my skill set really is to go through those resumes quickly, identifying those people that live too far out of the area because the client doesn't want to pay relocation. So I'll reject those. Also, people that worked, making French fries at McDonald's, but they just send a resume because they send resumes. It doesn't cost them anything. So I'll reject them. And I'll bring it down from that 100 down to maybe 25 or 30, okay? And then when I get down to 25 or 30 that look good, I will then go back to those people with a couple of questions, usually one technical question and one behavioral-based question for personality question, and have them respond. So now they get back to me, and now instead of 30, I may have 20 people. I invite those 20 people in because right now, on paper, all those 20 people look awfully good. So I will invite them in on one day, and I'll have 3 groups of 6 or 7 people per group. So one is going to start at 8:30, another will start at 11:30, another is going to start at like 2:30. So I'll have 3 groups come in to, uh, to the office of the client. And they'll come in, and first of all, they're surprised because they're not expecting that be 5 or 6 other people there. And I do that purposely to see how well they deal with stress. Because it's stressful. All of a sudden, they're there with 5 or 6 other people. I've had some people walk out, and that's absolutely fine because I'm there to eliminate to get to the very best candidate that we can find. And what happens is I will have told the client I need 3, the hiring manager plus 2 other key stakeholders to interview. And I give each one of them a question. They have one question, and they're going to have 10 to 12 minutes with a candidate. And what happens, I'll bring all those 6 people in the conference room, 6 or 7 people come in a conference room together, and I have the owner come out to talk about the company and the vision of the company.
Okay.
And the candidates can ask whatever questions they want. And then I have the hiring manager, whoever's going to be, the person's going to report to, he or she comes and talks about the job itself, talks about the compensation, the responsibilities, the benefits, any questions they want. And so they can ask, it's a two-way street, I tell them. Interviewing is a two-way street. And they can ask the owner and they can ask the hiring manager any questions they want to clarify the position and the company and the role. At the end of that, and that takes maybe 10 or 15 minutes, but what happens is the owner and the hiring manager only have to say it once, or actually they're going to say it 3 times during this day to each of the different groups. Then I tell people, if what you've heard doesn't really make sense to you, if it's not the kind of job you want, if it's not the compensation or the hours are not what you're looking for, this is the time to leave. You've done your due diligence. And every once in a while, 1 or 2 people will leave because it's not what they want. And so then what happens is I do some cognitive assessments with them. And after the cognitive assessment, then they will have 10 or 12 minutes with each of the 3 interviewers. And again, the interviewers ask the same question. So interviewer A, let's call her name Mary. Mary asks everyone the same question because I want to be fair and have an even playing field. Mary asks everyone the same question. After 10 minutes, I have my famous bell, and I ring my bell, and they move from one interviewer to now they go to
Like
to
speed
Jose.
dating.
It's like speed dating. They go to Jose, and Jose has a different question, and they have 10 or 12 minutes with Jose. The bell rings. Then they'll go to Louis, and then Louis will interview for another 10 to 12 minutes. After that, I tell them that within 24 hours, they will know. I said, my goal is to get it down from, I tell them that we have 18 people coming in today, and our goal is to get it down to the 2 best candidates. So it is a very competitive situation. And what will happen, though, within 24 hours, I will get back to every one of you personally and let you know your status. So you will know either you're going to be one of the 2 to come in for a full interview with the hiring manager and me, or we're going to pass on you as a candidate. But you will know that. So you're not going to be sitting around waiting. You will know within 24 hours. And I do that 3 times during the day. At the end of the day, I meet with the 3 interviewing and the president, and I develop a matrix, and we rate how the people answered the job and how we felt about that person having the poise that would take to be the sales manager. And then we rate them on a scale, and whoever gets the 2 that get the,
So you do like a weighted application.
it's a weighted application. So whoever gets the best scores, they're the 2 that I call and say, congratulations, we want you to come back in.
So you narrow it down to 2.
To 2.
Wow.
And those 2 then are the 2 finalists. Well, they've seen 18 of the very best candidates out there. Now, we started with 100,
Sure.
but I've got it down to 30, then I got it down to 18. And then they see these 18 and they're able to say, well, I can compare the first candidate, Susie to the last candidate, because I've seen them all in one day.
Mhm.
One of the dangers when you see candidates, after I said, gee whiz, I forget which one
Yeah,
was.
I can see how that could happen.
Because you can't
Mhm.
take pictures of these people. That's inappropriate and discriminatory. So you can't do that. But if you have them all on the same day, then you can compare. And then also the hiring manager doesn't have the sole responsibility. Other stakeholders are all involved in the process. And so we get down to the two very best candidates, and then they come in for a full interview with the hiring manager and myself.
Well, that was a good point that
So-
you made there with stakeholders. So I think whether you're doing, a small panel or you're doing a big panel, it's important to have the
Yeah.
stakeholders at the table that are going to be dealing with this candidate as they move into the position.
But I can hire someone within 30 days. Like I will hire a new sales manager for this within 30 days and get the very best candidate that's available out there because of this process. So it's a process I've found to be tremendously
Effective, huh?
satisfactory and effective, and candidates love it because at first they're shocked because they see these other people,
Right.
but that's okay. It's part of the stress that you're going to find when you get to that level. You've got to be able to deal with stress, but they love the fact that they get back and in 24 hours, and I call the next day and I will tell them that I'm sorry that you didn't make the cut. But they know that they had a fair competitive situation
Hmm.
and that they didn't, so they can move on with looking for another position.
Sure, they're not sitting
Yeah.
there waiting
So,
to hear back from
Yeah.
the company.
okay. So that's just something that I thought I'd share because I know it's worked for me, and it may be helpful for some HR pros out there. If you want to do that, it really does expedite the whole process, and you have an opportunity in one day to see the best of these candidates. So let's take another break, and we'll talk a little bit more after the break.
What I like about the DISC profile is that it's thorough, but it's not redundant. So it shows me what I need to see. It explains exactly how this candidate would behave in an office environment, how they would relate to their coworkers and their managers, but it doesn't give me so much information that I'm confused. It's also a really great tool, not just for hiring. I can also use it when I'm coaching or when I'm reprimanding an employee or when employees are having disagreements between themselves. So I have brought DISC profiles to these meetings and I show them, this is why your personality would react this way to this comment, and this is why hers wouldn't. And it's just been a really great tool because it's factual, so people don't tend to take it personally, and they're also very interested to learn more about themselves. So oftentimes at the end of those meetings, the employees will ask if they can have a copy of their entire thing, and I'm happy to give it to them, and they're really excited about how it matches up to their personality. They're really shocked that only a few questions can really just like see who they are in such an in-depth way. And it's great for when I want to move people into different jobs or different departments, because I can see, would they fit in this department? Are they capable of doing this job? And it gives me confidence to be able to promote or to move into a different department. And then when I've done this with employees and I've shown them their DISC profile, when we have conversations in the future, all I have to do is reference it and they understand. So it's been a really helpful tool in a lot of ways, not just for hiring. Right. I mean, the cost for the DISC profile is minimal, especially when you compare it to the cost of hiring the wrong employee. To onboard, to train, to pay them benefits, to pay them holiday pay, for however long it takes for you to realize this wasn't the right person. I mean, that's a tremendous cost, both in time and in dollars. So the DISC profile cost is really minimal compared to that.
Thanks, Stephanie. Let's just kind of end the program today with the first day. What do you do in terms of preparing for we now have a new hire, okay? And you've hired the best person. We don't care whether they're white, black, male, female, gay, straight, doesn't make any difference. We want the best person in that position. And you've just gone through our processes or whatever, however you do it in your organizations and how I do it. But thankfully, we've hired the best person. What do you do? Do you have any kind of special program for them for the first day?
Well, typically, I mean, you want orientation to start on the first day, but it may not always be possible. So you do it as soon as you can within, the first month or so of that person being hired. But I think the first day is important. You want to maybe pair them up with somebody that has the knowledge of the organization and can kind of give them
That's a bell ringer. Okay.
Can kind of give them their bearings and their new environment for the first couple of days. Where do you park? What's there to eat around here? Who do I go to for this? Who do I go to for that? All important.
Tammy, how about yourself? No, you did a great job training this lady because you're the one that hired her.
Mhm.
What about Tammy in terms of first day?
Well, just to kind of go into more of what Natalie was saying is the first day, the pairing up with someone who's willing, whether it's an HR person or preferably someone from the department that they're going to be working in, giving them a good feel for what they're going to do. Of course, showing them, their work area, making sure introductions are done. But again, that kind of going back to what we were talking about with interviewing is the key is preparation. This person's going to start. The last thing you want is, everybody's like, oh my God, that's right, he's starting today, and then they, of course, there's always that, big stack of paperwork. We need you to fill this out, that out. A lot of that's being, done electronically these days.
But that is the worst, to come in and not be prepared for that new person walking in the door and they're kind of sitting there waiting, like, what do I do? And I've been in that position. That's not fun.
No, it's not. And you want, just as much as it's important for them to give a good first impression, it's really important for the organization as well. To give that first impression and help them understand, just the sort of overview of what's going on. And what that does, I think, is just give them that little bit of comfort in knowing, okay, this is going to work, because the first day is always the most nerve-wracking. And there are times when you're hiring 10 people are starting on the same day, and that can get a little tricky in handling that. But again, preparation and, just giving them that overview and letting them know you're there for them. If you get stuck, that's what HR is for. So, just making them feel at home.
Excellent. We're going to end on that. But before we end today's program, I want to personally thank Natalie and Tammy. Thank you for coming on and being such a wonderful guest for us and adding your insights. But I want to thank especially Natalie for being my celebrity co-host. She's been nothing but wonderful, and we wish you nothing but the very best in your career as you lead the HR function here for the city of Port St. Lucie. So again, thank you so much, and we wish you all the best.
Thanks so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
And folks, we'll see you next week, same time, same station. Thank you.
The Greek philosopher Socrates said, "The first step to wisdom is to know thyself." Complete a Whyz Hr personality profile to really know yourself. Get a 93 to 97% accurate 40-page comprehensive report of your personality styles. You'll also have the opportunity to have a phone consultation with an expert in understanding the report.